What's going on, everybody? Another week, another What the F happened. And today we're going to talk about, well, taxes. That's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about Kamala's tax plan, and we're going to compare it to Trump's tax plan. As we just passed the final deadline for tax returns to be filed, many folks are going to start realizing that their taxes did not go down. In fact, they went up. So we're going to see what does next year, the year after, the next 4 years look like from a tax standpoint. That's just one topic amongst others like Israel and Iran. And Stephen's got a whole slew of stuff we're going to talk about. We'll be right back after this. All right, we are back at it, folks. We are joined here with Mr. Nagy coming in live from Florida. I know a lot of you just got through a hurricane down there. Not just a hurricane, but you ever see the movie Twister? It was kind of like watching that on TV. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. But thanks, everybody, for joining us for What the F Happened, where we rant, rave, and argue about the news and economic events. Stephen, what's happening down in Florida?
Yeah, what's up, everyone? Good morning. It's good to be here on What the F. We got less than 3 weeks to go until many are saying the biggest election, most consequential election of our lifetime. What direction is the United States of America going to take moving forward? We'll definitely get into a little bit of that today. But like you said, Chris, last week was a busy week. A couple weeks ago with Hurricane Helene hitting the kind of panhandle of Florida, and then obviously going up into the Carolinas and just devastating everything involved. We've really been raising a lot of money. We've been making a lot of donations. We've been donating ticket sales to try and help the people in Appalachia and through the Blue Ridge Mountains up there that really got hurt. And then, of course, last week with Hurricane Milton taking a direct shot right out around Sarasota, and a lot of devastation over the West Coast. But the big surprise with Milton, they were calling for catastrophic record-breaking storm surge and flooding, and it could be a big Cat 4, maybe Cat 5 when it hit. Well, their predictions were completely wrong. It hit as a Cat 3, still a lot of damage, but more or less just a regular Florida hurricane. But the big surprise was the tornadoes that this thing spun off. So several hours before it actually made landfall, the east coast of Florida just got absolutely demolished with record amounts of tornadoes and record powerful tornadoes that have never been seen either in a hurricane or in the state of Florida ever in history that we've been tracking this kind of stuff in the weather. So really, I don't know if you want to throw a tinfoil hat on and talk a little bit about that, we can. But to me, it's just amazing how powerful Mother Nature truly is. And, people say, do we control the weather? Are we making these hurricanes and guiding them and things? I personally just don't buy into that. I see how powerful these storms are. I mean, if we can control the power of a hurricane, then we have a lot more sophisticated technology than any of us are aware of. Now, I know a lot of people have other thoughts on that, but it was wild. I mean, these tornadoes, Chris, were like the ones you see in Oklahoma that were like several miles wide and went for miles and miles and miles of pure destruction. I mean, usually in Florida, we get these little skinny things that spin down, hit, go away, but it was unprecedented, wild stuff. And then last thing I'll say about this last week in review was we had an awesome event in Nashville, Tennessee. I saw a lot of you guys there, had a great time meeting people for the first time, seeing other people, friends, clients that have become friends, hanging out, having a good time in Nashville at the annual Money Multiplier BYOB Mastermind. And that will become an annual event because it was such an awesome time. So definitely look out for that in 2025. All right,
I definitely got to ask, I'm not going to put the tin hat on today. We're going to get down to brass tacks. But, how many of you in the comments, think that there was something funky about the storms, all the rain and the flooding and the dam breaking in the Carolinas, in North Carolina specifically, and then these crazy hurricanes with tornadoes? Anyone want to throw their tin hat on and kind of take a stab at whether you think maybe they're messing with the weather? There was reports of little blue or little green kind of jelly things in the tornado or in the on the ground after the hurricane, created havoc up in Asheville. I don't know. I don't know enough about it, but Janetti, I think I'm saying that right. Janetti1 coming in from Instagram says, "Oh yes." I'd love to hear it from some other folks. I don't know. I don't know. I'm kind of like, I don't want to mess with Mother Nature or God, period, because there's nothing more powerful. So yeah, I don't know. Someday there will be a show about it. Matter of fact, I bet you there's already been a Netflix show on it. It's kind of funny. There was that show about the train that crashed, and then the train crashed. And then we started going down the rabbit hole, and you found out there's a lot of movies about things that happened after the movie came out. I don't know. Do some research. You guys have all seen the original movie Twister. Remember the things in the hurricane? They kind of measured it. Did they figure out ways to make hurricanes and tornadoes just a wee little bit stronger? I mean, they do chemtrails. What is that all about? So it does make you put the tin hat on and start thinking, but I don't know. We'll wait and see what everybody says. I want to hit Will FV Heels question here from YouTube. He's basically asking, can you do a dump into a specially designed whole life at any time, or is it when you were first starting the policy, new to IBC, excited to get started? So I just want to hit this one because it's off topic and not the news. We'll get it right out of the way. The answer is we design and engineer the policies to take the dump in that the client wants to put in. So if you had like a set amount you wanted to put in as a dump in the first year, the policy would be designed for that. If you didn't design the policy to take that dump in, it would be very difficult to make that happen. We can also design it to have multiple years of dump ins if the client so wishes. So we can get really customized with how we design them. It's all around your needs and goals. So, but the answer to your question is no. If you started a policy that did not account for dump ins, your dump in that you'd put into that policy would end up mecking it. So with that being said, let's dive into some stuff. Stephen, you got so much information. So let's actually start with you today. And I'm going to end with just taxes. Yesterday was the final day for taxes. And, I got some news last night from my personal taxes were done after all 16 companies were filed. And, I can tell you, I don't want taxes to go up anymore. Matter of fact, it's just absurd what we pay in taxes. And this is the lowest taxes are ever going to be. So I'd like to talk a little bit about that, but specifically to the tune of what are each of the presidential candidates' tax policies and how will that affect everyone, not just people making over 400, but I want to hit that too. I want to talk about how people making over 400 or making millions of dollars, like if you tax them, what does that mean for people making 40, 50, $60,000? Because a lot of folks think, oh, that doesn't affect me. I heard it the other day from one of Kamala's supporters, and I just asked him, I said, so, why are you voting for Kamala? Like, what about her policy do you like? And he says, well, he kept saying, well, I don't like Trump. I don't like Trump. I don't like Trump. And I said, no. What about her policies do you not like? He said, well, everything in the Trump tax plan to reduce taxes doesn't affect me. I don't make enough money. So Kamala's stuff where she's going to give more to people like myself, that benefits me. And listen, fair answer, right? Like people vote by their pocketbook. It's always the way it's been. So that potentially, hit home. But the one thing I didn't say, but I'm going to bring up today is what happens when your boss or the person that is making over 400, over $1 million, that has those big tax increases and the corporation you work for has big tax increases. What happens when they cut the bottom line? Is your job at risk because of Kamala's tax plan? So Stephen, I'm going to turn it over to you because I'm going to dive deep into that in a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much out right now. I just don't even know where to start. But since we talk about banks a lot, let's just kind of skip over politics for a second. So I saw this just interesting story, and this kind of sums it up right here. So TD Bank was recently fined $3 billion for enabling drug money laundering, which is the largest penalty of its kind in the United States history. So banks always are going to do what banks do, which is do whatever they can to make money. And they don't care who they hurt. They don't care about the moral obligations that they should have. Just the way the banking cartel in this country and really in this global world works. I mean, the Federal Reserve in its own right is one of the biggest scams and Ponzi schemes in modern American history that's just not talked about. I mean, we all know just the basics of it. The Federal Reserve is neither federally owned, it's a private organization, and it's not a reserve. They don't actually have any money. And so it's just really amazing that we just are all okay with this. But it's why I love what we do with railing against the banks and only using banks when it benefits us. See, most banks use you. Most banks make tons of money off of you in lots of different ways. We use banks where they're a net loss to us, the way that we use banks. And to me, why not do that when you're able to? And it's very easy to do so with our guidance. But check this out on that story, Chris, the next paragraph. With that $3 billion fine, what actually happened? Well, TD Bank actually profited $10 billion from that money laundering scheme. So let me ask you guys, you don't have to
no, you don't need to ask. Yes is the answer.
You don't have to be a bank. How many of you would spend $3 billion to make $7 billion? Anybody out there? Oh, and by the way, there was no charges filed. Nobody went to jail. Nobody was fired. There was zero accountability. Does that sound familiar with the United States government these days? No.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, your silent partner in your business. So clearly that bank had a silent partner that it kind of knew about, but they didn't really show up to the board meetings. They never showed up to any of the important meetings. They never lifted a finger to do extra work. But yet, when there's a big profit, your silent partner shows up for their check. And in that case, that check was $3 billion of $10 billion. Yeah, I don't know. That's what I have to say about that.
So it's funny, Chris. I mean, you mentioned Kamala and her policies, and why would you?
Wait, let me stop you. Kamala.
Kamala.
I just got to make sure you're getting that right.
How'd I say?
Kamala.
I think it's Kamala.
Kamala.
Are you sure?
I don't know. We should ask Google. Anyone got a ChatGPT check on how you say her name? Because there's been a lot of debate here in the office, and I thought I had it. I listened to a couple videos. Kamala.
Here, let's see.
I don't know.
Hey Siri, how do I say Kamala Harris's name? Didn't work. All right. We'll try again later.
It must be blocked.
All right. Kamala.
Well, I don't know. I'm waiting for someone to tell me what it is, but it's kind of tough because you're just going to spell it.
We're just going to go.
We'll fact check the proper saying of it, but let's move on.
So like you, I've been trying to find out. So I've really been watching. I mean, she's been talking a lot about, what she's going to do. Obviously how are you different than Joe Biden? Well, I'm not Joe Biden. Well, no shit, you're not Joe Biden. But what are you going to do?
We can't have 4 more years of this, Stephen.
Well,
we can't. Wait, I didn't say that.
I was born in the middle class. Okay, we know you were born in the middle class. Start every conversation that way. But okay, let's get to the policy, please. So she keeps talking about this $50,000 for small business startups. And I was actually listening to her. Somebody actually asked her, like, well, how is that going to actually benefit small businesses? Because a lot of small businesses struggle. I mean, have a lot of expenses in the first several years anyways. There's a lot of write-offs they would already have. Like, is this really helping? Well, she's like, yeah, well, you can't, right now it's a $5,000 tax deduction. She said, you can't start a small business for $5,000. So we're going to up it to $50,000. We're going to be able to give these small businesses $50,000. And the interview I was watching, they were like, whoa, hold on. You understand that, this is a tax deduction. Like, we're not giving people $50,000. And she, like, it really stumped her. She had no idea. So she doesn't even know the policy that she's trying to say. But here's the thing. She did release. Did you see this, Chris? It's unbelievable. So she literally thought she was like giving small business 50 grand to get started. No, it's not a grant. It's not a loan. It's a tax deduction. Kamala. All right. And so I finally, she came out with a new policy yesterday. She said, this is brand new this week. We're going to do this. And
build the wall, right?
No, not build the wall. That's another one. This is a brand new one. Building the wall is a couple weeks old. Brand new. And guess what? It is the most illegal, racist, anti-trust, anti-constitution I've ever seen. So Harris Walz puts out this new policy. Kamala Harris will create an opportunity agenda for Black men. All right, let's just read through this. I'm all for supporting diversity, but read through this. Provide $1 million loans that are fully forgivable up to $20,000 for Black entrepreneurs and others to start a business. Okay, so you have to be Black to get this, remember. Support education, training, mentorship programs that lead to good paying jobs. That sounds good. There's nothing wrong with that one. But the rest of it's buying votes. Look at this. Protect cryptocurrency investments so Black men who make them know their money is safe.
What?
Think about that.
It doesn't make any. All right, keep going. That one doesn't make any sense.
This is the most racist, absurd shit I've ever heard in my life. Launch a national health initiative focused on the illnesses that disproportionately impact black men. I'm okay with that one too.
Yeah, I'm good with
this
that.
last one is unbelievable.
That's definitely an issue that could be
This
handled.
last one's unbelievable. Legalize recreational marijuana and create opportunities for Black Americans to succeed in this new industry. So Kamala's whole new policy she's so proud of this week is to buy votes by ensuring that your investments can't lose money and to make sure you're able to smoke weed while doing
What
so.
if you're
Indian? Also promoting a health
What if you're
program.
Indian, Stephen? What if you're Asian? You know, what if you're another another I'm trying to think like what Asian, Indian, what am I missing here?
Tough shit, man. You're not getting anything. If you're Hispanic, if you're Spanish,
I'm not even getting to white because we know like if you're white, you just nothing's happening. But
so this is where we are today. And then, just kind of my last little
I do like some of that. I'm not gonna lie. Like I thought number 2 was really good, and I think that's very much needed. I don't get the cryptocurrency when you can't protect that, and like
this is buying votes.
Protected for everybody.
This is buying votes. This is buying votes. It's all just money. All right. So the other thing that I've noticed this week, we've had a little pivot in the campaign. So up until maybe about a few days ago, even about a week ago, it's been very since Biden was very, very divisive. He, if you remember his first State of the Union in Philadelphia with the soldiers behind him and remember the red lights behind him and that whole scene where he just railed that, all the MAGA 50% of the country are basically domestic terrorists and they're a threat to the United States of America, and just the most divisive president we've seen since really Obama and Joe Biden. But when he did leave the race, when they cooed him out, when Kamala just stabbed him in the back and ran him over with a bus and became the new Democratic nominee without a single vote ever cast for her ever in history. But anyways, so she kind of actually has been staying kind of positive. Like there hasn't been a whole lot of negative, like Donald Trump is, her surrogates and the media. Absolutely. They've been talking up even after the first assassination attempt, they kind of backed off for a week and it was right back at him. Donald Trump is a existential threat to the country and he's a fascist and he's Hitler. And we heard all of it, but Kamala never really went there. She kind of stayed on, the other stuff. But in the last week, that's completely changed. All of her appearances now, all of her speeches that she reads from the teleprompters, Tim Balls, whatever his name is, same exact thing coming from him. So I think they're getting really desperate because their whole pitch of I'm different than Joe Biden and I'm going to make a change for America and turn the page. You guys hear that with Wall's wife and not Kamala? Turn the page. What page? You're the vice president. But anyway, so I just saw this change in the last week where now they've gone very negative. And now Kamala is coming out saying Donald Trump is an existential threat and a Hitler and a Nazi and all the rest of it. So
wait, that's just happening now?
With Kamala, yeah. She's
really?
Just
Kamala.
Kamala.
I'm not saying that right.
My apologies. But anyways, that's one.
It's okay. Just look in the mirror and practice a few times before the next show. That's all.
All right. So,
all right. Chris Ash, like I had not heard this. Chris Ash said, and she must be worried about the electoral prospects. Yeah. I mean, have you been following any of the polls, like the Electoral College and everything? Close race, actually, not really all as close as they make it sound, but it sounds like she's going to do an interview on Fox News
tonight.
Kamala's going on Fox News.
Yeah, with Brett. What's his name?
Oh yeah, but he's all right. I'm sure. Yeah, she's not going to go on with anyone else. Yeah, that'll be interesting to watch. You would hope that they're not softballs, but there's probably a gun to his back. Like, say exactly what we tell you to say, or your family dies.
I'll be interested to see. I honestly think it's more than that, Chris. I think she's very, very desperate. Like all of her avoiding any interviews, her avoiding any adversarial press. She hasn't still had a single interview with anybody outside of like 60 Minutes and CBS bullshit where they just completely edit. And that's a whole nother story. The 60 Minutes episode that came out, they completely edited and changed her answers and just a complete destruction of journalistic integrity. It's really sad to see how.
Did you actually hold on a second? Hold on. When did you actually think there was, what did you just call it? Journalism, professionalism? What was that thing you just said?
Journalistic integrity. Yeah.
Journalistic integrity. You actually truly believe there was any integrity in the journal? Especially the 60 Minutes or any of those shows? Shame on you, man. Hurricanes don't produce tornadoes either.
And we continue to see the divisiveness. I mean, this was a story that came out of Florida this past week. And let me just share this. So a lot of times you'll see, these like Antifa characters, or people call them feds, or whoever knows, like the America First people that march around the cities, with their Nazi flags, and they try and say they're Republicans, and it's just complete crap. It's all just to discredit and make people look bad. But so check this out. So this video came out, all these pictures at this boat parade of this boat.
Look at this beautiful swastikas.
There we go. So they're trying to be like, oh, we're Nazis for Trump and all this.
America white again.
Woo, woo, woo. So
we're out here in Jupiter, loving it, loving the good weather.
That's where this might
be. Guys. Woo!
Listen,
right, so you see
whether or not that's a hoax or anything else. I mean, there's let's just face it, there's assholes out there.
No, that's 100% a hoax. 100%. This is my town. Like, these people do not exist in Jupiter, Florida. 1000%, Chris. But so let me show you what my friends did to them. Watch this video. Hold on, let me rewind this because it's excellent. All right, here they are. These are my friends in the other boat.
It's not playing. You might have to stop.
Oh,
no, we can't see it, Stephen. You might have to stop it.
No. All right, I'm sorry. All right, go backwards. All right, here we go. My friends on the right, Nazi boat on the left. Oh! Get what they deserve right there.
Pussies.
So anyways, that's the reality of the situation. True Trump supporters, true Republicans, people that live here where I live, that's the attitude towards that kind of bullshit. So anyways, just a little clarification there.
All right. So I'm just going to hit a couple high level things. I mean, if you've been following all the banks, they've been showing profits. So Morgan Stanley tops estimates. So they're topping estimates, okay, which is probably because they lowered their expectations and their estimates prior. I don't know that to be fact, but we shouldn't right now be focused on whether companies are beating estimates or not. We should be focused on what their future outlooks are. And if you remember back in the news, I mean, it doesn't feel like it was all that long ago. Was it, Cash? How long ago was that? Couple months, they would talk about, whether or not a company beat its earnings came out positive or beat estimates, but they would also talk about future expectations. I haven't seen that in the news in a while, and I've been paying very close attention to these reports coming out, and I don't know. I mean, great. They're just hyping the markets up. It's insane. Yesterday, the market was down, so then they do everything. There's no negative news that it's almost like it's just removed or doesn't even exist. The only negative news they put in isn't about the market. It's always about Trump. Like right here, top lines, news. Trump's coin sale misses. Oh, coin sale misses. Early targets, probably like a year early, as crypto project's website crashes. Negative news. How many more negatives can we find about Trump? I saw one other one. All right. Wells Fargo, though, calls consumers extremely resilient. Nice way of saying our consumers are really stupid and just listen to everything we tell them to do. See, it's all just how you say something. Interesting. Tom Brady's now a partner in the Las Vegas Raiders. Pretty interesting move there. Probably not a bad one. There was another article here. Oh, here it is. Harris mocks Trump over town hall music interlude. I don't even know what interlude means. I'm not that smart. As he stonewalls on health records. See what I mean? It's like, but if there was something on Kamala, it was absolutely be positive. So you were talking about integrity of something with journalism?
Journalistic integrity.
Yeah. Whatever that is. Doesn't exist.
No, it definitely doesn't. And I have several other examples of just in recent weeks of, kind of what the mainstream media has been up to. I mean, CBS, the Ta-Nehisi Coates, just that whole meltdown they had on air where the host was actually raging, kind of pushing against a little bit about his book. And Ta-Nehisi Coates, just the fact that the left really champions that guy. Just go read him if you've never have. It's really interesting. I mean, 60 Minutes, like I mentioned, was caught editing, multiple versions of the Kamala interview, which is just crazy. New York Times. You see the story where on Kamala's plagiarism in the book she wrote several years ago? Did you see that?
No.
So
where did you see that? That's definitely not in the news.
So it's out there. They've been kind of trying to push it under the rug because it's really bad for her. But a lot of people say Kamala. Can I just call her
in the mirror? Just do it in the mirror.
Did I say Miss Harris? So, so Miss Harris, she, one of the gripes people have about her is that she has no, she's not very smart. I don't know how else to say it. She can't answer questions directly. She doesn't seem to really know anything about anything. At least that I've seen in any interviews or any conference she says. I mean, just the other day she was reading off a teleprompter. The teleprompter froze for like 30 seconds and she literally didn't know what to do. Like it was
that was funny to watch. It was kind of just like kept repeating herself.
Right. It was wild. So, on that same thing, like she wrote a book several years ago and which is great, an author, but they this guy, Chris Rufo, he went in and did all this research. I think it was Rufo anyways, somebody went and did all this research on it. They found 12 very specific and important parts of the book that were just 100% plagiarized. Either from without ever citing any sources, without any mention of it. And that's a big no-no. Like that's gotten people completely like taken down. And that's something you cannot do. And she got caught red-handed with 12 different plagiarized different section of this book. So it feeds into that whole thing. She really is just an empty suit, an empty vessel, and just part of that democratic machine that just keeps churning. It doesn't matter who's at the top of it because this thing is just going to churn out inflation and spending and bureaucracy and all the rest of it. That's why I love when you see, Donald Trump saying, hey, what I'm going to do is something completely different. I'm going to bring in Elon Musk. And what is Elon Musk known for when he runs companies, Chris? He's known for innovation through efficiency. He's for getting things done with the least amount of energy and money needed. And so when Trump says, I'm going to bring in Elon Musk to be part of the government efficiency program or whatever you want to call it, I mean, that's the stuff to me that we should be looking at. Like, because we are on a path right now in spending in this country that just continues to drive inflation, continues to hurt the middle class and everything else. I mean, inflation is just a hidden tax on the middle class at the end of the day. And the path that we're on moving forward, none of that is being addressed. None of that's going to be fixed. And it's destroying this country from within right now.
Yeah.
If you want a pretty good video from Kevin O'Leary, just about 50 seconds, just kind of talking about that real quickly. You want to see that?
Yeah. And then I want to hit on some controversial things like tariffs.
Yeah, I'll get into tariffs next. Let me hit this and we'll get into tariffs for sure, because that's an important one. So just real quickly.
Can an outsider in government do what the former president says Musk can do?
Well, let's go down the checklist and whether we, on a bipartisan basis, because this idea should work for red and blue. Is there fat in the federal government? Check the box on that. Yes, there's always been fat. No one's really taken a knife to it really yet. Number two, there's always people with great ideas, but executional skills are almost impossible to find. Every idea that Musk brings to the market, he executes on, including catching a giant rocket, out of space, as we saw yesterday. Absolutely incredible. Chopsticks, as they're called. Those are called executional skills. I would pay to see the movie where they unleash Elon Musk on the federal government in looking for efficiencies. That is a great idea. I 100% endorse this. He would do a fantastic job for every single taxpayer. Release the hounds.
And I agree with that 100%. And just to give you a quick example of what this looks like in reality.
Dude, it was the craziest thing ever. I mean, literally, like when you watch it, it's almost like you look at it and you're like, no, that's AI. I mean, the damn thing catches not just a booster, like the rocket out of air.
Oh, I'd love to play the short little video in a second. But I mean, just to give you in reality what that actually means, what Kevin is saying right there, you can see this. So this was California high-speed rail that was supposed to go from, where was it, LA to San Fran or something like that. And it's been known to completely fail. So you can see on the bottom left picture right there, that's what's been completed of the high-speed rail. Just for the record, they spent $100 billion on that one little section right there.
Yeah, okay? Engineering.
So in contrast, SpaceX spent $5 to $10 billion to develop a Starship, less than 1/10 of the cost of our non-existent high-speed rail. At this point, I think most government spending is just looting, and it's hard to argue with that. And that's what happens with this big government bureaucracy we have versus what capitalism can actually accomplish in this country and in this world. And it's been proven time and time again, and that's exactly where we are today. But yeah, watching this rocket ship just. I mean, it's really unbelievable to watch it happen, Chris, what he's doing with these rockets.
Yeah. Are you going to play the video?
Yeah, I can pull it
Well,
up.
that's all right. If you, I was sitting back, I'm like, well, I want to watch it again.
Sorry, I had a couple. I'll pull it up in a second. But
Okay, no problem.
go ahead.
And Drew's an engineer he just came in and said the booster is 19 stories high. That is for sure.
What's really cool to see too, like with that, is you go back a couple years ago and you can hear Musk talking about, like, this is my dream, this is my vision. It's a lot of people say it's impossible, it can't be done, but it has to be done because we need to be able to become multiplanetary for the human race. And he believes all this stuff. And to see somebody talking about something that everyone said was impossible and they pull it off a couple of years later, I mean, it gives me goosebumps, man. It really does, because it makes you realize that the American dream is alive and well, and it makes you realize what people can truly accomplish when you do break out the bullshit out of life and you just focus on your goals. I mean, Elon Musk, that guy, I mean, I don't think he sleeps, does he? He's just going all the time. And there's a bunch of different angles of this video. This is just the first one I pulled up right here. So just play this one real quick.
Landing burn, ignited. We're now down to 3 Raptor engines. We can see those chopsticks now.
Really is amazing.
Dude, look at how high that is. I mean, and almost for a second, it looks like it's going to just hit the thing and blow up, right? Because, I mean, I can't imagine it's something that big. If it hits something, it does some damage. Well, the chopsticks are just like, come here.
And it was in free fall prior to it, those boosters kicking on. I mean, I think it was falling at something like half the speed of sound or something as it was on its way back down. And then they kicked those boosters on, stabilize it somewhat, guide it over, and then gear it right into that. I mean, it really is amazing, man.
It sure is. Anything else on your side, or should we move over to tax policies and tariffs?
Go ahead, get into them. I got lots of stuff.
So I think one of the big controversial things, with Trump, and I hear this because I still, believe it or not, actually talk to some severe left liberals. Sometimes don't want to, but it just conversation comes up, and I just get their perspective. I'm not mad. I'm not telling them they're an idiot. I'm just asking questions. Like, that's what I do. Why are you voting for this? What is your take on this? And we literally have created no less than 5 YouTube pieces of content because of these discussions between myself, which I don't view myself as being far right. I'm definitely right, but not far right. But he would definitely be, I would call, pretty far left. So one of the discussions came about with tariffs. So Trump, as you all know, wants to increase tariffs on China. Basically, I think a 60% here. Let me get the facts, so I'm not making numbers up. I believe it's a 60% tariff. Let's see. I just read it. I think it's 60% on all goods coming over from China. Let's see. It should be right here. Steven, do you know if it's? I have it. I just got to find the article.
I didn't know the percent.
Yeah, here we go. I found it. Imposing a 60% tariff on all U.S. imports from China, making. Well, here, I'm going to hit that one. So does everybody understand a tariff? I mean, we all should, especially living in Buffalo. We understand it well because there's a thing called duty. If I get in my car, I go over to Canada and I buy something over a specific value. Okay. My dollar buys more goods. So for me to buy in Canada, it makes sense right now. The US dollar is stronger than the Canadian dollar. So I get a discount. That's how you look at it. But when I go back across the border, I have to declare what I bought and I have to pay duty. What is duty? It's essentially the tariff. It's just a tariff on goods and services that exchange between countries. And listen, I might be exact in that definition, but we all understand that, right? So a tariff put on China, and there are tariffs right now. The original taxes, their tax proposals, and the original tariffs that Trump started in his, presidential years are still used today. But it's one of the few things Biden didn't nix. Matter of fact, Biden increased some of the tariffs on Chinese goods, things that would affect EV, mostly, anything that fit the Green New Deal. He taxed, I think, if I'm not mistaken, something is taxed 100% by Biden. So he upheld all of the Trump tariffs. Now, Trump is coming in saying, and Kamala is also saying she's going to probably keep the tariffs on China. But, again, specialized industries like technology, the Magnificent Seven, let's just keep it at that, where Trump is saying we're going to put a tariff on 60% of all goods. But who is the one that ultimately pays the tariff? Is it China? Anyone think China pays the tariff? No, it's us. Essentially, it's the U.S. companies. So if GM buys goods and services from China and there's a 60% tariff, when those goods and services are shipped over to the U.S., GM pays the tariff, the duty, if you will. Does that make sense? So because GM pays that, and it's more expensive now, even though they bought the goods cheaper in China, when it comes over, the tariff brings it back up to be that of pretty close to what the U.S. could produce that same good for, or at least 60, pretty darn close. Still less, but much higher. So we all should understand, just in saying that, that's inflationary. It's going to drive the price of goods up. It's going to make the things we buy, especially things that we use a lot of Chinese parts for, Chinese services for, it's going to make that increase in cost. Everybody understands that about a tariff.
Chris, real fast, I'm going to share a 3-minute video in the chat box. If anybody wants to get a little deeper for 3 minutes into it after this, definitely check out this video. It's one of the best videos I've seen that explains tariffs pretty well for the U.S.
Yeah, but I'm getting this pretty close,
Absolutely,
right?
100%.
Okay, so now most people would look at that and be like, oh, well, then I don't want tariffs. I don't want tariffs on things. I don't want my goods and services to go up. So when I talk to my friend, and he is a friend who is far left, and I was talking to him about this, he's like, see, that's why I wouldn't vote for Trump. It's why I wouldn't vote for Trump. No, I'm asking you why you're voting for Kamala. Kamala's still got tariffs, just not on all goods. So his answer would probably be something like, well, because she's not going to, the cost of all things aren't going to go up, just technology and the things, that are going to keep business here. So now let's level the playing field. So now that everybody understands that tariffs make the goods that we buy more expensive, or the companies we buy them from less profitable, one of two ways: company's going to make less profit, or they're going to increase the price of the profit to absorb the tariff. I hope we're clear on that. So everybody thinks that's bad. Let me spin it a different way. Let me try to think like an entrepreneur would, or like just a logical thinker would, and think of it like a leader. First off, by us giving so much business to China, it has created a trade deficit. Everybody understand that? It's a difference between what we export and what we import. Let's just carve out just China. Do you realize our trade deficit is in excess of $423 billion? That means we import $423 or so billion more from China than we export to them. In other words, they're saying, fuck you, US, we're not going to buy products from you. Or maybe we just buy a lot more products. Either way. So that's a problem, because if we buy so much more stuff from China, all we are doing is literally funding the CCP. Forget about China and its rich history and its dynasty. We're talking about the Communist Party, the CCP. So all we're doing by allowing that big of a trade deficit is literally enabling, funding our, I don't want to call them an enemy, but not our friend. It'd be like you walking up to the kid in school that you hate, or the person at work that you just can't stand, and just saying, hey, you know what? Here's $1,000. I don't know why I'm giving it to you, but here's $1,000. I hope you hate me more. And then the person's like, you're a piece of shit. I'm going to just rib on you even more. I'm going to say you're even a fool for giving me $1,000. And then the next day you come in and you give that person that just told you they hate you another $1,000, and they say, this is just going to keep getting worse, because the more money you give me, I'm going to take out ads on Facebook and Instagram and just tell everybody how stupid and ridiculous you are. That's what we're doing with China right now. So tariffs will make goods and services cost more. Make no two ways about it. It will increase inflation, none of which is good for us, but it is necessary for us, because we have to give right now to get. Because if we do this with tariffs, what that's going to mean is less companies in the U.S. are going to go to China and buy goods and services, because why would they? It's more difficult. It's got to ship over here. It's all this pain in the ass. I got to fly to China. If they could just buy the same goods and services from U.S. manufacturers, or now U.S. manufacturers will actually pop up in industries where before they couldn't compete with China. So now all of a sudden that industry comes back over here, and companies will buy from U.S. companies. which means companies will hire more U.S. workers, including immigrants, okay? Even illegals. We'll cover that in a second. It will be good for our economic state. It will be good for our population. It will be good for us entirely. But it will hurt a little bit in the beginning. So that is the simplest way to explain why tariffs are actually good. Stephen, do you want to add anything to that?
No, man, you summed that stuff up beautifully.
I did a lot of research to do a YouTube video. I don't think people realize how many hours we put into research before we do a YouTube video, but that's tariffs, okay? The other thing you must understand is when we fund China by buying their goods and services, we are also funding their military. And if anyone wants to do some real scary homework, go on and look at military spending for the last 10 years. Look at what the U.S. spent and what China spent, and just follow the numbers through a 10-year period. I'm not going to give it to you, but you won't like it. And guess who's paying for that? We are. And then there's greedy Wall Street, the company or the industry I used to work in. Okay, Wall Street, many of the top fund managers, not to name any, but BlackRock, Vanguard, and the ones that you know so well that own everything, they also have invested, I can't remember how much, but it was in the billions of dollars in Chinese companies that are physically banned by the United States government. They're banned. Why? You might ask, why would the United States government ban these companies? Well, because they fund their military. They fund military expenditures and military advances. So Wall Street is literally doing what the government says not to do and investing in Chinese companies, funding their military to be bigger, badder, and better. That's what's happening. So I don't know. Anyone have anything to say on that? And I'd love it if somebody could challenge me on anything I just said, because I did a hell of a lot of research for that. So if anyone thinks they're smarter than I am in terms of that topic, let's talk. And maybe you can teach me something. But now I want to move over and I want to talk about two different things. Okay, because this is going to take some time and I'm going to hit this in Wealth Webinar. So I'm just going to brush the surface now and we're going to do something super fun on Wealth Webinar today where I'm going to go deeper into this. So if any of you want to join us, it's this afternoon, 1 p.m. Eastern. Go to chrisnaugle.com, scroll down 2 index fingers down and register for the event. No cost whatsoever. All right, so Kamala's tax plan. Here's the good thing about Kamala's tax plan. If we look at a 10-year revenue model, she will never make office for 10 years. So this is kind of silly. But if you did, and everything she proposed in her tax plan were to happen, the good news is there'd be $1.697 trillion in some other numbers in positive revenue for the United States. Okay. It would also help our GDP a little bit. Our loss. No, that's not a good one. Yeah. So full-time jobs would only go down by 786,000. No big deal. I mean, we'd have 786,000 less full-time jobs. But let's get into the meat and potatoes here of her tax plan. Now, I just want to read this. Actually, I'm not going to read it because I want everybody to see this. And listen, here's the good news. I went to the same site for both Trump and Kamala. So this is, and it's a very third-party site. It's called taxfoundation.org. Let me share my screen and we're going to go into this. Whether you think this is boring or not, this is freaking important. And I will explain exactly how important it is after I get into it. All right, here we go. Let's read this. Put my darn glasses on here and read along with me, folks. Major business provisions. Okay, this is the Harris tax proposal. Just want to call that out. The Kamala tax proposal. Right here, we're going to increase corporate income tax rates from 21 to 28%. Do the math. That's a 40+% increase. So they're going to increase taxes on corporations. Well, that's great, right? That's really good for bringing business back to the U.S., isn't it? So if you own a company, and it would be easy for you to open your next factory in Mexico or China, for that matter, and it would be that much cheaper, 40% less, to do so, how many companies do you think would move offshore? How many companies would be psyched about an increase like this and just want to do more business in the U.S.? Okay, great. So you understand that. Less jobs. But that was actually outlined in the top, which I could actually take you back up right here. Less jobs. All right, let's keep going. Next, increase the corporate alternative minimum. They call it an AMT. Any business owner knows what that is. Introduced in the Inflation Reduction Act. You mean the Green New Deal or whatever else it was called. From 15% to 21%. Okay, so let's do this again. I want to teach you some math here. So 15 to 21%. The average idiot maybe wouldn't do this, but 21 minus 15 is 6. Divided into, we'll go into the 21 just to give you the better part of it. It's a 28% increase, but you could also divide it into the 15 that it is now, and it's even worse. Everybody understands how you do the math. Pretty simple. That's a massive increase. So again, we're now targeting not corporations, because some people would be like, well, I'm not a corporation. I'm just a sole proprietor, just a DBA. Okay, now this hits every business. Alternative minimum tax, it pretty much affects all of you. You're going to have an increase of, it's not 28%, but we'll call it 28 to 38%. How you liking me now? I mean, how you liking Kamala now? Or I mean, how you liking Kamala now? All right, quadruple the stock buyback tax implemented in the Inflation Reduction Act from 1% to 4%. Again, incentivizing companies to not buy back their stock. I don't know if I have an opinion on that, whether that's good or bad, but for the masses, that's kind of a pass. Make permanent the excess business loss limitation for pass-through businesses. Make permanent the excess business loss limitation. That's actually a good thing. Further limit the deductibility of employee compensation under Section 162. So now you're taking, again, less jobs, because now you're taking deductibility away from companies for the Section 162, which are different bonus plans, different things you can do for employees, like pay for their life insurance, health insurance. I'm just giving you some of them, a disability and other benefits that your company might pay for. Essentially, they're going to limit those deductibility. And if the company doesn't get a deduction for it, guess what? You, the employee, are not getting it. So if you don't think this affects you because you don't own a business, bullshit. You work for a company if you don't own a business. Increase the global intangible low taxed income. Okay, so whoa, hold on a second. She's not supposed to tax low income. Low taxed income. I don't know what that means, and maybe I'm spinning it, but the global intangible tax rate from 10 to 21. That's a hell of an increase. So whoever these low taxed income people are, that really will suck. And calculate the tax on jurisdiction by jurisdiction and revise related. Okay, so now we can discriminate by jurisdiction. Wonderful. Repeal the reduced tax rate on foreign-derived intangible income. So if you make income outside the U.S., you're going to tax that. Okay, you're gonna. Oh wait, repeal the. You're just gonna. I don't even know what that means, but whatever. Again, another one doesn't matter. Stephen, anything on what she's going to do for just businesses?
Keep rolling.
Okay, major individuals. You and I. Yeah. Our capital gains, like when you buy a property and you sell it, the capital gain. When you buy a stock and sell it, the capital gain. And estate tax provisions. All right. Expand the base of net income or net investment income to include non-passive business income and increase the rates for that. So, okay, now net investment income. We're going to expand the base of what net investment income is to include non-passive business. So that's not going to be good. So now, but hold on a second. It keeps going. Rates, increase the rates for that, and additional Medicare tax to reach 5% of income above 400. So again, here we are hitting the 400,000 plusers. Increase top individual income tax rate from 39.6. I'm not happy to say, but that's pretty much where I'm at on income above 400. So now you're only hitting, quote, the high income earners, the ones that employ everybody else. Everybody knows that, right? The high income earners, for the most part, are the ones that employ everybody else. It's the 595% or the 298%. Everybody get that? Like, they're taxing the people that employ people in this country. So what are the people that employ people in this country going to do? I'll leave that one up to you. Tax long-term capital gains on qualified dividends at 28%, as opposed to 39.6% as in the Biden budget. So basically, they're just saying she's reducing it from what Biden wanted to do it. Let's see, for taxable income above $1 million, unrealized capital gains at death at 5 million exemption, 10 million. All right. I don't know what the exemption is now, if there is one. So we're going to skip that. Limit retirement account contributions for high income taxpayers. So high income earners are now not allowed to put as much money into 401ks or qualified retirement plans and get the deductions for that. Tighten rules. So yeah, it is tax the wealthy, tax the rich, tighten the rules related to estate taxes. Very open, because they don't want to do that one. That's a vote, or, that'll hurt your votes, not help them. So essentially, estate tax limits right now are really high, but they're sunsetting. Okay, so I'm trying to remember the number, but if you and your spouse, it's like $26 million. So most people, don't hit that. Okay, and I might have got the amount wrong, but I think it's like 14 million each combined, like 28, we'll call it 24, 28 million. Should know that, but it's just changing. So now they're saying what they're going to do is tighten up the rules on estate taxes. So in other words, are they going to reduce the estate tax limits? Because not too long ago, in a distance past, the estate tax limits were like 5 million. Doesn't take much in today's world with where pricing of real estate is to get your estate over 5 million. And then guess what the tax can be on anything above these limits? Oh, it could be 40%. So it's another tax. They call it the death tax. So I think they're probably going to open that one back up. All right. Like kind exchanges, exempt tipped income for income taxation for occupations where tips are currently customary. Okay. Expand the Section 195 deduction limit for startup expenses. That plays into that loan or giving new businesses money. Let's see. Revive, Make American Plan, tax credit. So they're giving tax credits to, for children, positive things. Where's the I'm not getting into it. There's an unrealized tax that they're going to put on. Effectively, increased taxes, I think, is the model, right? Stephen, anything you have to say on that? I know I went long on that. Sorry, I was just reading it for the first time. I don't have this stuff rehearsed, but I already know Kamala's tax plan. That was just specifics. Anything on that?
Just some good comments over, and Lynn Green and Steve were both kind of saying she doesn't want employers. Everyone should be on the government dole, and Steve's calling her Giggles, which I think is great. So Giggles does not care about small or big business. She wants everyone on government assistance or working for the government in her world. So I couldn't agree more. It seems that way.
So when we come over to Trump's, here, I'll share this too. Same site. Come over here. The one thing I want you to all know, up here over 10 years, it will be bad for the deficit. I say this in my YouTube video. Like, Trump will be the president that increases the deficit. But let me repeat, he'd probably increase the deficit and then pay it all down because there's so much to fix right now. He's got a lot of shit to fix. And when you got a lot of shit to fix, it costs a lot of money. Okay, look at this. Positive number on long-run GDP. Positive number on long-range wages. And 597,000 new full-time jobs. So he's going to be good for you because he's going to provide, this is just the stats, okay? Top line preliminary estimates. Going to increase in jobs, going to increase wages, going to increase GDP. Yes, the hit's going to be a little bit more on the deficit, but I don't think Kamala is going to come in and shave anything off. So the one thing that Trump's going to do from a tax standpoint is he's going to make the individual Tax Cut Jobs Act, okay, which is expiring, okay? He's going to make it permanent. Okay, except the cap on salt, which we can look at later, but he's going to make it permanent. So the tax benefits that we have today become permanent. All right. So then, Stephen, what are some of the other things that he's proposing? I know you've got some of them right in front of you. Not taxing tips. That would be one thing.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of saw what Trump was all about, when he was president, and a lot of people say it was really good for the United States of America. I mean, even I was watching an old clip, it's from several years ago, but it was Michael Moore, is one of the most leftist kind of democratic people out there. But, Michael Moore was just talking about when Trump went in and negotiated with the labor unions in the car industry, the automobile industry, and what he did for them, through the tariffs and everything like that, just saying what a positive thing. Like, they never thought it was possible about Trump's negotiating style and his belief on putting it on other people and everything. And that's, what he's continuing. He's basically like, listen, we're going to go back to that kind of thing. We're going to do common sense stuff that makes sense and is good for the United States of America. And, you contrast that to, it just seems like, a lot of people over the comments were talking about China. China's the enemy of the country. They've declared basically, war on the U.S. and a lot, Kamala and the rest of them, they kind of want to be, real buddy. And Trump's like, listen, I'll be buddy with China, but they're going to pay. Like, we're going to go after them. And I think that's what we need right now.
I mean, I'm just kind of highlighting this stuff, folks. If you're reading it, I'm just giving you some of the highlights, but increase the amount of deductions just average folks, not just business owners, can take on auto loan interest. So now the interest you pay on your auto, you'd be able to take that as a deduction. Lowering corporate tax rates, the complete opposite of Kamala's, to 15% for domestic production. Bring back jobs to the U.S. Bring back companies to the U.S. He was already doing that when he was in office. Okay, add another 2.5 trillion to the 10-year revenue. Not too shabby. So these are all proposals. Now, I'm not saying he's going to be able to get them all through, but he already got most of them through. And then after-tax income under Trump's plan, this is just showing the tariff proposals, distribution of Trump tariff hikes. Essentially, I can't see in the stuff, and I'm running out of time, so I don't want to go deep into this, but I can't see in Trump's plan where it's going to hurt anyone's pocketbook, because he's going to reduce taxes and take taxes away on things there probably shouldn't be taxes on. When you had dollars, you could get rid of those dollars and those tips. Anyway, going down a rabbit hole on physical money, but getting rid of just the shit that we shouldn't pay taxes on in the first place. One thing I wish he'd put in his proposal, but he can't because it's state, is paying tax every time you buy a car. So you buy a car new, you pay sales tax. Then it gets sold, the person pays sales tax. It gets sold, person pays sales tax. That triple and quadruple and basically infinite number of taxation that we pay on this stuff. It's just a mess. So let me take it over. Instagram's been kind of quiet today, but I appreciate everybody from Instagram joining us. Let's see. So somebody on Instagram asked about the wealth webinar we're doing this afternoon. So the wealth webinar we're doing this afternoon is at 1 p.m. Eastern. You go to chrisnaugle.com and you register. It's a live Zoom that we do. All right. And that's all we got over here on Instagram for questions. So Jay was looking at Jason. Stephen, what do we got over here in Q&A? Any good stuff?
Just a lot of good comments. Just kind of following along with what you're saying. Not taxing Social Security.
I forgot about the Social Security thing. Thanks, Lynn.
Not taxing overtime. From Jimmy Davison. Great to see you this week in Nashville, Jimmy. Chris was asking, which website are you using for these examples?
Oh yeah, sorry about that. So Chris, we're using it's called taxfoundation.org. I just used the same one for each because it was, just better to do the same one for each person.
Yeah, Jimmy said another good point on vehicle purchases, or at least every time you resell the car, if you sell it for less than your basis, you should be able to take a capital loss.
I like that. Pretty much always sell it less than basis.
It makes you wonder. I mean, the amount that we are taxed in this country on so many different things. I mean, it's clearly unconstitutional if you really read the Constitution. And it's one of those things that makes you wonder if it'll ever change. Will it ever get to the point where there is legitimate and serious tax reform in the United States of America? I don't, at least in my lifetime, it makes you wonder if that'll ever actually happen. I would have to say no, but it's a dream. It's a dream of mine.
Ain't the good old days. Push lawnmowers,
Anna, we do record the wealth webinar every week, and it's put on the YouTube channel at the Chris Naugle. So make sure you subscribe to that so you get the alerts when new videos are put up. And we put up the wealth webinar every Saturday, typically. So you can watch the recording the following Saturday, wealth webinar if you happen to miss it live. So just a couple things, Chris, I missed. Maybe we can hit on next week. The U.S. military found mystery drones that they've said are not recreational or not hobbyists. They're saying they're probably from China, but the Pentagon is stumped, quote unquote. But for 17 days, these swarms of drones hovered over some of the most sensitive national security sites and military installations in the country, right around the DC area. So for 17 days, we just allowed that to happen. I mean, just the incompetence of this administration is just mind-boggling. But nonetheless, maybe we get into that story more tomorrow.
Well, let's not forget about that big balloon that flew across the whole country. Everybody's like, it's a bird. No, it's a plane. No, what is it? It's Superman. No, it's just.
And that's nothing compared to.
And then we shot it down. That was the coolest thing. We probably sent an F-22 up there and shot it down with like $1 million missile. Dude, give me a 308 and a scope, and I got this, guys. I got this.
Well, those drones, again, I don't have time to get into the story, but they had like local police, like the military weren't allowed to like do anything. So local police officers were literally trying to chase these drones in their squad cars. These drones go like hundreds of miles an hour flying overseas. One of them landed at one point. I mean, they did. Anyways, we can talk more about. We'll save that for next week because it really gets into it. There was a guy that they found that was like, "Oh, I'm just flying a hobbyist drone. It landed in a tree," and he took off in his car, went directly to the airport, flew from DC to Los Angeles, and got arrested trying to board a direct flight to China. So they literally caught us. So it's happening all over the place. A lot of data on what's going on in Canada with immigration and foreign-born people, and just the devastation that open borders has done up there, and what we've seen in this country over the last 3.5 years. We didn't really get the chance to talk into that. A lot of whackery already going on with some of the mail-in ballots that are out there, and a lot of people are already starting to question, what this election, is it actually safe and secure? We didn't really get the chance to talk about what's going on with Elon and the Justice Department coming after him with SpaceX, and how the California politicians are openly saying that they're refusing to allow Elon to launch rockets in California because of his politics. Like, they're coming out and literally saying this, which is bizarre to see. And then Columbus Day, which I'm not going to get into right now, but Columbus Day was Monday already.
Not called Columbus Day
Several other stories. We ran out of time, so we'll continue those next week, Chris. But thank you for bringing it back to reality. The point of this live stream each week is to how policies and how this stuff affects your money, how it affects your market. So that was really good when you talked about taxes and tariffs and how that's actually affecting us. So thank you, Chris, for bringing that up. And like you said, I'm looking forward to seeing your new upcoming YouTube video that goes into more depth on that. And then, of course, joining us today on Wealth Webinar, where we'll dive into it as well. So I'll let you bring it up.
So we'll see everybody this afternoon on Wealth Webinar, 1 p.m. Eastern. Go to chrisnaugle.com to register there. No cost, and you get some free books just for registering. So we'll go deeper into that tariff situation. We'll talk a little bit about what China's been up to, about Wall Street funding Chinese military companies, but we're going to wrap it all up with a pretty little bow, and we're going to talk about real life monopoly, and that is called Be Your Own Bank. We're going to hit that one hard. We'll see you this afternoon, 1 p.m.